Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Brandon here with another great business to discuss on this episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. Today's guest is Nick, and he's selling his Amazon FBA business on the Empire Flippers marketplace. So welcome to the show, Nick, and how are you doing today?
Hey Brandon, thanks for having me. I'm doing great in sunny Mexico City out here.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, we were talking about this before the interview, both of us being in Mexico, and yeah, the weather has been amazing now. I'm just hoping it stays this way. So yeah, it's really great to have you on this seller interview and to talk to you about this business you've created. But before we get into the details of the business, let's give a general overview. So it is an Amazon FBA business in the personal care niche created in May 2015. The average monthly revenue for the business is $13,857 and makes an average of $3,304 per month in net profit. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 53531 to learn more about the business, or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So now that I've given a general overview of the business, what's included in the sale is the Amazon Seller Central account with 15 SKUs, the domain and all site content and files, a trademark, a social media account for Instagram, supplier relationships, standard operating procedures, an email list with 73 subscribers stored in MailChimp, employee contacts, and it is worth noting that inventory is not normally included in the list price and further details can be provided to active buyers. So Nick, can you tell us a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses?
Yeah, sure. Let's jump into it. When I was 19, actually, I think that's like the prelude of what led me to the online business world, and that was offline business. So when I was 19, I was part of this program called College Pro Window Cleaners, which was a franchise for university students in Toronto, Canada, to basically run your own window cleaning and home services company. And I did that for a couple of years, later on branching off to doing my own home services business with one of my best friends in Toronto. And so throughout that, also reading books like 4-Hour Workweek, studying marketing online, finishing school and whatnot, I kind of realized that the kind of life I want for myself has to do with location independence, has to do with online resources and online assets. And so that was kind of when this digital nomad trend was starting to blow up. And I remember Ryan coming up to me one day and just saying, "Hey man, have you heard of Chiang Mai, Thailand?" And I'm like, "What? No." He's like, "I think I'm going to try and go there and start a business." And I'm like, "All right." So right before that happened, we went on a Southeast Asia backpacking trip, me, my buddy Ryan, and a couple of other people. And throughout that trip, I had all the intentions to come home just to finish off school at that point. I think I was like 22, 23, something like that. Finish off school, run another year of our window cleaning business. And Ryan was going to go straight to Chiang Mai, Thailand. And throughout that backpacking trip, I heard a lot of Amazon FBA. Just, I sell stuff on Amazon. I'm a manufacturer for Amazon. I'm a vendor for Amazon. And I'm just thinking, like, what is this Amazon FBA situation? So when I got back to Toronto, I started researching it. And it just kind of clicked for me. I remember listening to a podcast by, I believe the guy's name was Steve Bolker. I forgot the podcast name exactly. But he was one of the first, Amazon FBA kind of OG podcast that people would listen to, they'd jump into it. So I just remember day in, day out, just learning a lot about it. And as the puzzle pieces fit together, just doing my research, coming up with my, top 5% products. And mind you, the world of Amazon in 2015 was very different from Amazon, 2021. So things were a little bit simpler back then. But yeah, I remember just taking pretty much all the money I had in my bank account, sending it to China, fingers crossed this will work. And then my stuff arriving, and I ordered it. I made the order a month or two right before Chinese New Year. So my order ended up getting delayed. That was my first huge lesson coming into the Amazon FBA game and Chinese manufacturing. But as soon as the products hit the shelves on Amazon, it's 2 sales first day, 4 sales second day, 8 sales, after that. And it's just growing itself on top of itself. And, I feel like there's a lot I could talk about, especially those early days. But that's kind of the general gist of how it all happened, how it all went down. And 6 years later, here we are, me talking to you from, Mexico City after traveling the world for 5 years.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I love traveling and having the opportunity to scale and grow this type of business model is an amazing opportunity, I feel, and I'm sure you feel the same way too. Now, with this business in particular, Nick, so how does it primarily make money? I know you have 13 SKUs. Would you say that the revenue is spread pretty evenly among those 13 different products?
Yeah, so if you were to ask, this is kind of weird, like just looking at the trends and being in the game for so long and doing this for so long, just seeing the trend where like if in 2018, for example, you asked me like, what does your spread look like? In 2018, I already had kind of all the Amazon stores opened up the same way I have right now. So we have USA, Canada, UK. Back then, pre-Brexit, we had all 4 European ones plus UK. I tested Japan for a little bit, but just the language barrier completely got to me. Like I would have to hire a completely different operations manager for Japan, and that just didn't make sense. And then Australia. So out of all of those I just mentioned, basically Japan's the only one we're not running still. So back then it was like predominantly USA. USA was the market, like that was the place to be. You launch everything, you run everything there. It was making up about 60 to 70% of my revenue out of all those Amazons I just mentioned. That's including the 5 European ones, with UK. Today, we are primarily running United States, Canada, UK, and Australia. And it's so crazy because I don't know necessarily how Amazon changes their algorithm or how the rankings work. Competitors come in, competitors come out. There are trademark algorithm differences. There is, the way you appeal like piggybackers or hijackers, the way you report them in all these different platforms, it works very differently, especially like Canada and US, different tools for kind of like for same actions, but different tools and different ways that they want you to take care of it. Today's, I would say that United States accounts for about 30% of our sales. And then the other, I would say 60% or 55% is spread between Canada and UK. They're always like, one's higher than the other. And then the next month, the other one will be higher than the other. And then Australia is like kind of like a sneak peek. At first, it started off as like just a couple of sales a day, very small. And I was like, okay, I don't have a lot of faith in the Australian market because Amazon Australia is super new. And then, today's day, I'm already noticing like the pickup to like 6 to 8 sales. And I'm like, man, this could be potentially huge because like tools like Helium 10 or Jungle Scout don't even give you data on Amazon Australia. So I'm starting to notice that pick up. And I'm like, man, I'm so glad that I opened up that Amazon, like when it first launched. Just to have my feedback, just to have my, seller feedback, like initially it's super important to have that aged listing, to have that aged account there, because now that it's picking up, it could be really cool to see where they take it in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Diversifying your marketplaces and spreading the audience to multiple countries is really awesome opportunity. And it's great that you've already established that foundation for a potential buyer to come in and scale those marketplaces even further. Now, what was it about the personal care niche that kind of drew you into these products? Was there something during the research stage or even when you were in maybe Chiang Mai and kind of researching products and kind of getting into the realm of like, oh, wow, Amazon FBA, this new amazing business model. But yeah, what was it that stood out to you about the personal care niche and why did you get into this one in particular?
Yeah, so personal care was actually not on my radar. That was something that I've always, when I first got into it, the first like 3 months of research, I kind of strayed away from it, to be honest, because I felt like, when you think personal care, it's like, oh, it's like creams or lotions or almost like similar to the category of like gourmet foods, where these are really picky items that require a lot of certification. It looks like, quote unquote, a lot of complexity. But then without going too much detail, like I found like a sub niche of a niche that got turned into a different niche. It's really weird to explain without kind of going into details of it. But basically, I ended up creating a whole different category of using this one product. It had like 2 sellers. It was used for one very particular thing. But then reading the reviews, I noticed that people were actually using it for a completely different, broader situation in their life. And so I took that product, I improved it in a way that people were asking to improve it. And then I launched it, optimized for keywords and for categories that were this different, broader niche. And it just took off. And I guess you could say our product was the first one in this niche. Now, obviously, people caught on. We have some competitors, but as far as age and reviews go, like we are still there at the top. So we're kind of like enjoyed that like first to market product.
Yeah, jumping on the opportunity when you had it is obviously paid off really well. So that's really awesome to hear that. Now, if the business is doing so great at this time, Nick, why is it that you've decided you'd like to sell it?
Yeah, so after being for 6 years in it and figuring it all out, like I remember at first when I was starting off, I was thinking, man, it'd be so cool. It'd be so exciting to just figure out like manufacturing and logistics and how this Amazon machine works. And I've done that, like including going to live in China in Guangzhou for 6 months, including me going to Xinjiang province, which is like borderline next to Tajikistan, like in the very northwest of China, to find like the manufacturer that is not on AliExpress, not on Alibaba, and not on 1667 website. Like you just cannot find these. These are the manufacturers for other manufacturers, and negotiating deals with them, just having a translator there, like it was wild. But now I've kind of rediscovered, like for myself, the thing that I really, really am passionate about is funnel and CRO optimization. Like I love that combination of psychology with sales and kind of like persuasive design for different websites. And that's kind of something I've always enjoyed, I think, in Amazon itself, where optimizing listings with photos, with keywords, running those campaigns, like that was always a big thing for me. And now at this point, I do still see so much strength in physical products. But for me, like just the interest, the pure raw, curiosity comes from just learning this new skill. And I'm actually part of the reason why I'm selling the company is that I'm going to be using a big portion of these funds to start my own CRO funnels optimization agency.
Yeah, that's awesome that you already have, that goal in mind, and it's a passion project as well that you're wanting to move into as well too. So that's awesome to hear that you already have that roadmap as well laid out. Now, was there anything that you learned while growing this business that you plan on applying to that project down the road?
Testing, always be testing, ABT, from prices to, I think it was called Splitly, Amazon pages. Like you never know how the algorithm behaves, and the algorithm is always changing, Like that's why one of the, small key advices I give to all the new people that start, or let's say Amazon sellers who have been selling but just haven't like figured out the PPC, is like always be running your auto campaigns. Never turn that off, because auto campaign will more often than not suggest to you how the Amazon algorithm is changing. What keywords, maybe a keyword that wasn't popular a month ago is super popular today. And the only way you'll know that if you let Amazon advertise your product for that keyword, and you can see what's going on, what's changing. Yeah, that's kind of like my love for CRO, is that nothing ever gets old. You always have an opportunity to test, to change something, and to see your results from it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that you always have to keep on the forefront of your mind in growing your business. Is things are going to change, keywords are going to change, things like to this nature could always shift or pivot into some other type of direction that you might not have seen had you not, set up those automatic campaigns. So really solid advice there. Was there anything that you tried with this business and it just didn't give you the ROI that you were expecting?
Oh my God, yes. That 100%. There was another product that was kind of relevant to mine. And this is one of the biggest lessons that I've gotten when it comes to like Amazon FBA, is that one of the reasons why it really succeeded was because I really took my time to do the due diligence on keywords, traffic, revenue, competitors, read all the reviews, analyze it, how can I improve it, and what's my launch strategy. Like I really went deep into it. With my second product, which was relevant to the first one, I kind of did the opposite, and not in a good way, where I guess I was so caught up with like, oh my God, Amazon, you put anything there and it'll sell, What I was thinking is like, okay, like consciously or logically, this next product makes sense to expand the brand that I'm building. Like Ryan Moran would say, just like you need 3 products all tied up in the brand that make 10 to 20 sales a day, and boom, you have a $1 million business. So that's kind of the approach that I took. Instead of actually doing my due diligence, I was like, this is just a good extension of the brand, and the brand is so strong, it'll carry itself. Guess what? Nope. I launched it. Like, good thing that I took a small amount of the shipment and I dispersed it all over my Amazons, which was kind of cool to be able to test like one product in like 5 different marketplaces at the same time simultaneously. And some did better than others, but overall, it was just not something that people were, begging for. It was not a product that was solving like a huge need. And so after the first run, we kind of discontinued it. So huge lesson there, and huge advice. Every new product, whether it's your first or your 100th, like always do your due diligence as if this is the last money in the bank that you have, that you get to spend. Like this is your last shot. So treat it as a last shot, even if it's not.
Yeah, solid advice. It's always making sure you have everything planned out, all your ducks in a row before you finally go all in. Because, yeah, like you said, if something did go make a turn for the worse, you don't want to be having all of your eggs in one basket at the same time. So where would you say that a majority of your traffic is coming from? I know your business is on Amazon Marketplace or on their platform. Would you say that a majority of the traffic coming in is organic, or are you also seeing a large number of PPC traffic coming into the listings?
I think it depends on the marketplace, but I would say if we ranked it by organic, because organic is always good, right? I think PPC traffic, like paid traffic, it's good for ranking specific words as well as indexing specific words, like tying those keywords to your listing so that Amazon algorithm learns like, oh yeah, when this word gets searched, this item gets bought. But organic traffic, that's kind of what we're all after, right? So by organic traffic, we have a really, really high ranking in Canada, which Canada is funny enough. When I was, after a year that I was doing, selling on Amazon FBA, Canada was like an afterthought. It actually took a friend of mine to convince me, like, hey man, just try Canada. Just put your items there, copy the whole listing. Like, you don't need to do a lot of work. And I did it, and it just really, really worked. And the dividends were paid off like years and years after. So Canada, I would say, like, our organic is probably about 80%. I think United States, it varies month to month, season to season. So it could be 40 to 50% organic, one month, and then it could be 70% organic the next month, depending on the season, depending on the month. And then UK, I would say organic takes up about 60% of it. And then Australia, it's like, Australia is weird because we threw like as many keywords as we could with the highest bidding possible, and PPC is barely getting triggered because our item, I guess it's what it was when I first started selling on Amazon FBA in the United States, because we were first in the niche. It's like the PPC almost didn't matter because the keywords alone were kind of carrying the listing. I think that's what's going on in Australia right now, because no matter how much budget I set, no matter how many keywords I throw in there, it's like we'll spend like $1 a week and we'll still like sell, like I said, we're still selling like 6, almost 8 per day now. I'm starting to pick up. So Australia is kind of crazy. That's why I'm kind of bullish on Australia.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity that you're not really spending that much money on PPC. And as you had said, a lot of it's coming through organic. So that's really great opportunity as well, too. And I'm sure our potential buyers out there can also see the value in that, having that roadmap and already that marketplace established, too, which is really awesome. Are you doing anything else in terms of marketing for the business? I noticed you have an Instagram account and an email list. Are you doing any other types of marketing promotion for the products using those channels?
I have jumped in and out of it. I don't think I've ever fully committed to, full like Google Bing campaigns, fully redoing the Shopify site that we've had like for a year or two now, and, gathering those emails over the years. But that would be something that I would advise the person that takes over the business. I see it as a huge opportunity moving forward. But for me personally, I think I was more focused on solidifying my position in all of these different Amazon marketplaces, because funny story, actually, one of my friends that I've known for 4 years now, and I met him on the road, he has an extremely, like, we're talking about like multi-million dollars per year on Amazon brand that he's grown. And he has a Shopify store as well. And so I remember talking to him, and he said, yeah, Shopify, like at its best, at its highest, is probably going to be responsible for 20% of your sales on Amazon. Now, I think that varies, place to place. I think it'll also vary depending what product or what niche you're in or your forms of advertising, because I know he's also kind of like me. He went all in on Amazon, and Shopify was kind of a byproduct for him or an afterthought. So for me personally, I've always thought about it. I never fully executed on it. I kind of started it, as you can see by like, small email list and small off Amazon sales. But that was never really my focus. Amazon FBA was always first and foremost for me.
Yeah, that's pretty common as well, too. It's not everyone is going to expand every single channel and optimize it to the best of their ability. And since we're kind of on the subject of, growing the business, hypothetically speaking, if you were to keep this business, what are some of the ways that you would personally try and grow it?
Yeah, so I think that was something that actually Empire Flippers also for the listing, they asked me as well. And I think there would be like a 3-pronged attack for me, especially if you have investment to invest into a team of people to help you do this. I think that would be ideal. I think number one is growing out the Shopify store with external advertising and capturing those emails, having communications with your clients, and kind of asking your dedicated, let's say you have your first like 1,000 dedicated clients, kind of using them as a voice or as a compass to guide you into what new products they want. The second thing that I would do is I would go in depth into the sub niche that I'm in, and then try to find product extensions that you could build either in US or in Canada or in UK because now at this point, you kind of have all these marketplaces available to you to test different items and different product expansions, right? It's not like you have to like, okay, it's working in USA, will it work in Canada? Like you can order 1,000 items and send 200 test units to each marketplace to test it. And then I think the third thing that I would do is probably just solidify the brand that we have right now, like the product that we have online. Like, I mean, everything's already in SOPs. That's kind of how I've been running it for even for myself. It's kind of like a pilot's checklist, but just kind of keep up with the optimization. Like once every quarter, I'll look up for new keywords, like how did the rankings change between me and my competitors, as well as new PPC strategies, and optimize our PPC system, which I've created after 6 years of doing it. So I try to make things as automated as possible for myself because one man show between 5 marketplaces is quite difficult.
Yeah, I can only imagine, having, those listings in all of those marketplaces, I'm sure can get pretty tedious with the workload. On that subject, could you walk us through, I know you kind of touched base on this slightly, but could you walk us through like what does your weekly task or your operations consist of at this time?
Yeah, so I will have a daily check-in, and I think daily check-in is pretty important. It doesn't have to be that long. So on a weekly schedule, I will spend about 5, and if there is like some fires to put out, maybe 10 hours per week, solid, like in the office, button chair. Usually daily, it'll be about 20 to 30 minutes for me just to check in to make sure that all the listings are active. PPC is running smoothly. There are no problems, no hiccups. Everything's going okay. If there's something that's off, then that takes a little bit longer to investigate. And then once every 2 weeks, I'll pop into each individual marketplace's pay-per-click. And like I said, because I have like a funnel-based system for PPC, it's not something that I have to sit and look at. I almost don't even look at the keywords because the way that the system works that I created, it's based on click-through rates and conversion rates. So I almost don't even care what the keyword is. I would optimize it based on those metrics. And then I would spend about 2 to 3 hours per week just masterminding like the next move and what I'd like to do. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's how my would look like.
Yeah, that's pretty helpful, I'm sure, for our buyers to kind of get an idea of kind of the operations and the workload that you're currently experiencing with the business. And do you think that there's any particular skill set that a buyer should have prior to acquiring this business, or could most of the workload be learned during the transition period?
I think I've done pretty much all the heavy lifting. And one of the things that I've also kind of included, and I think it's kind of signed a good faith, I think that everybody should be doing that when they're selling a big asset like that, is staying on for another, 2 to 3 months with regular conversations and regular accessibility to oneself, just to make sure that there are any like small questions that are answered. But once we go through the funnel, the PPC system, I think that's the most complicated thing. But once you kind of run through it a couple of times, you get it. And then the quarterly optimization of listings, and then bi-weekly optimization of PPC, everything kind of straightforward. And then at that point, it's more about, okay, how do I move forward from this? What would be your advice about, let's say, having this product based on these metrics as an addition? Or what about having this manufacturer? Like, how do I find manufacturer for this product? And all these things can seem daunting, but one of the things that I want to kind of put forth as like a non-tangential, I guess, asset as part of this business is having all my contacts, like having my friends who do a lot of research in China. One of my best friends, he actually has a 5-year-old sourcing company in China. He's got a team there. And I always use him for research of warehouses, Chinese warehouses, Chinese freight forwarders, and manufacturers that nobody else has access to. So kind of having these like little unfair advantages along the way and having me as an advisor, I don't think that there is anything that's difficult. Not even like an 18-year-old dude straight out of college can't learn.
Yeah, that's really awesome that you're offering that added support. And that'll be one of my next questions for you once we get into that support. Well, I guess I could ask it for now. So are you willing to just offering like 2 to 3 months of support for potential buyers? Is there anything else that you'd like to add on to what you just mentioned?
Yeah, so I mean, personally, I'm fairly confident in the business as it is. Like I said, it's 5 to 10 hours per week, timely investment for myself. It's just that I see this new opportunity, new pathway for myself, and I really want to accelerate it while also kind of closing this chapter of 6 years of my life spent on this business and like really getting in depth to it. And so feeling very confident, like I'm not in a rush to just like, okay, one-time sale and done and kind of like just get out of it. I want to make sure that the person that's getting the business gets the full picture and also gets a lot of guidance if they want it. Any kind of questions they have a week after purchase, a month after purchase, 2 months after purchase, that I'm available on the phone they can call me or schedule a call with me and we can get on the call and I can like clearly explain to them, okay, here's what kind of manufacturers we use. Here's all your questions about logistics answered, down to like, I don't know, HS codes for United States import and what's the taxation, what's the tax that we have to pay and how do your freight forwarders handle imports into country? Do they have their own import agents and stuff like this to like, hey, how do I better launch a product in Australia? Like completely separate from your listing that you're selling. I'm planning to sell this completely different thing that's irrelevant to your business. Can you give me some advice? And like, heck yeah, of course I would.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's awesome to hear that you're willing to go above and beyond and add that extra support to make sure that the buyer is, set up for success and they all also continue the business on to be successful as well too. So that's really great to hear that. On the flip side of that, what do you feel are maybe some of the potential risks associated with this business that a buyer should be aware of?
Yeah, so in the risk profile, something that I've been noticing is that Amazon, especially in the last year or so, it's been changing a lot, especially because of COVID. One of the things that I've noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Amazon likes to treat fulfilled by merchant almost as good, if not better in certain cases, than fulfilled by Amazon because they want to keep the stock in their warehouses lower, people showing up to work lower until this COVID thing blows over. So that kind of gave way to a lot of gray hat and black hat actors coming onto the platform and, hijacking, piggybacking, or completely using vendor account to change other people's listings. I've personally had at the beginning of this year, around January, February 2021, in the United States and Canada, fulfilled by merchant sellers from China being able to win the buy box over me. Now, the one thing about me is that I like to play it cautiously, and we have trademarks registered in both Canada and United States. So we were able to get rid of those bad actors pretty quickly. But I think that starting a new Amazon store, I think there's varying opinions. I mean, I've personally watched hours and hours of content on YouTube, and one guy will say, it's never too late. You can do this so well. And even some of my friends are believing man, you should totally start a store. And in my personal opinion, man, no. I think the best way to get into Amazon today is to acquire a previous store with previous assets, especially if it's got trademark, it's got steady sales month in, month out. It's got a solidified stance in its own niche. That's how you get in, and then you build from that platform because getting in brand new, it's like a recipe for just getting suffocated. That's my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but that's the biggest challenge that I see today on the platform.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's something that we talk about quite often. Obviously, I mean, not trying to be biased, but, buying something that's already, established and has a history and has the data and the PPC campaigns already established for you. And you have all of this information already for you to scale, much better opportunity than trying to start something from the very scratch and then trying to scratch your way to the top, I guess. So yeah, so I completely agree with you on that front. Now, Nick, are you willing to commit to a non-compete, meaning once the deal is done, you'll stay out of this specific niche?
So like I was saying previously, it's kind of like you've given something 6 years of your life. You're really good at it and you know a lot about it. But the next chapter of my life actually doesn't have to do with products or Amazon. The next stage of my life will have to do with understanding consumer psychology online and how to work in funnels and optimization to websites and offerings. So I'm going a very different direction. And that's why I feel very comfortable with not only selling this business, but also providing a bit longer term support than a normal listing would, because I want to make sure that this business gets handed off to a person who really cares about it and will grow it, preferably with my help. I want to see this specific product because I do believe that it's the best in the niche. I want to see it grow and be accessible to more people. But for me personally, my life has something completely different in store for me.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. And I'm sure all of our potential buyers as well listening to this call can also see that value and the added support and you wanting to see the business succeed, as I'd mentioned earlier. So that's really great to hear that. Now, are you open to negotiating something like an earnout where you'll receive a large portion of the sales price up front and then smaller payments closing out the deal after that?
Yeah, so I'm very comfortable with that, like I said, because, I'm confident in the business myself. It's not something like a hit and run for me where I need the money immediately for a big project or a big startup. So yeah, I'm very much comfortable with that. And I'm very much comfortable being in contact with the buyer and kind of giving them as much advice as I can.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear that as well. So just a few sideline questions for you now. So what advice would you give to our listeners that you wish you knew when you first started this business?
Man, this is a tough question, but okay, I'm going to take a few assumptions here. I'm going to take an assumption that you have some sort of location independency or semi-location independency. I'm going to assume that you live in a city where there is potentially a group of either early or mid-level Amazon sellers. I think if I take those kind of assumptions to a higher bird view level, I would say that having people who are on the same path as you, especially if they're just a few steps ahead of you, is super key, right? Because not only for their experience, but also for just encouragement and bouncing ideas off of each other. I think that maintaining never-ending curiosity, like no matter how far you get or, what kind of obstacles you encounter, just having a longer term vision for yourself, reminding yourself why you're doing this and trying your best to work around it and looking for answers, because literally there are answers for everything. No matter how big your problem is, there is an answer for it somewhere out there, and just stupidly believing that and moving forward. Because I think from the people that I've spoken to that, let's say, in different careers or have some sort of, online agencies that kind of started off with Amazon. I remember talking to a few people like that. They said, yeah, this is what kind of took me out. Like I had a product order, and then the Chinese manufacturer totally bailed on me. And let's say I kind of lost like $5,000. And I'm like, man, that really sucks, but that's a setback. And you kind of write that off as like, okay, I did this wrong. Maybe I didn't do my due diligence, but you kind of learn from it and you keep moving forward. So there is always a way out, and kind of being persistent and being curious and always looking for people that are on the same path as you and aligning yourself with those people. I think those are the kind of key ingredients for success pretty much in anything you do.
Yeah, no, I absolutely couldn't have said it better myself. You are the 5 people you surround yourself with. So if you want to become successful in Amazon FBA, you really should consider surrounding yourself with others who are successful in this business model too. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that. Another question we had for you. So was there any software or tools or maybe even resources that really helped you at the start of running this business? I know you had mentioned a couple tools like Jungle Scout before, but yeah, just curious what other resources have really helped you.
I think Jungle Scout was kind of the OG. They were the first ones on the scene, but I think Helium 10 did it better. Like looking at the 6-year run of both softwares, and I've popped into both of them. I think I stuck with Helium 10 a lot more. I think there are some really good email softwares that I've subscribed to over the years, but I actually ended up using the Helium 10 email software follow-up. So Helium 10 is just a really good all-in-one suite. They have really good support, and they have like a bunch of amazing tools. And then this was an interesting one that I remember when I found out about it, it was pretty game changing for me. The Amazon has their own list of kind of like registered with Amazon help, whether it's like listing analysis or photo companies that will do photography for you. One of the best tools that you can get from that, once you have a Seller Central account, is their trademark accelerator, or I think it's like PI or something like that. So it's basically you can register a trademark with them, and instead of taking 8 months before you can use it, after 1 to 2 weeks after the registration has been filed with the UPSTO, I think it's called office, you get to use it automatically, and you get to protect your listing within a week or two rather than waiting for like 8 months to a year. So that was a really cool tool that I found out a little bit later in my career.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Like, never really take that into consideration, I guess, when people are filing for trademarks and realizing how long it can take. But there's a workaround, and I'm sure our listeners gain a lot of value from that as well, too. Now, final question for you, Nick, wrapping up this call. So putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why do you think that your business is worth buying?
So I think there's 2 levels to my answer. I think one level is that the seller accounts, like all throughout, we're talking about USA, Canada, UK, Australia, plus like Japan account and the 4 European accounts, they're there with the listings and the stars and the seller feedback. They're just not active right now because after Brexit, it kind of messed things up a little bit for sellers. So you have this 6 years of history of thousands of seller feedback, thousands of product reviews all over, and being the first ones to market in this niche, having 6 years of history, that creates a stable asset. Despite the ups and downs of seasonality, whether it's summer or winter, despite July sales being a little bit lower, and then November, December, January, February sales being higher as our seasonality differs, it's still a very stable asset. But also on top of that, it could have a lot of room for improvement, like the things that I mentioned, where, working off of Amazon to create a branded website and off Amazon advertising PPC, you can drive traffic. You can figure that out. There is a lot of potential for product expansion in the branding line across all the marketplaces. And I think finally just being able to start off and not having to start off with just like, okay, I'm going to register USA and just see how it goes, but having this robust global kind of seller central where you can test any product from China on any one of those platforms. So instead of having an MOQ of you coming into a manufacturer and you're saying, hey, I want to make this item, I want to test it out. Can we do MOQ of 200? They're like, no, 1,000 is our minimum, or 5,000 is our minimum. You now have 5 different marketplaces that you can research and spread out that MOQ for testing. And I've done that multiple times, and I think that's a really powerful thing to have, like 5 or 6 different marketplaces to just send it off and see how it goes.
Yeah, already having that foundation, the setup for the buyer, and having those marketplaces diversified is a really great opportunity. And I'm sure all of our potential listeners as well listening to this call can also see the value in that and the foundation you've already established for them. And that pretty much wraps up this call. Was there anything else that you'd like to share that I might have missed?
I think you've pretty much covered everything, Brandon. The one thing I would say is thank you guys for having me on the podcast. Thank you for existing in the first place. This is really awesome. Makes things a lot easier for buyers and sellers equally. And, whoever I end up working with, looking forward to it.
Yeah, we really appreciate it as well. And that's kind of makes the world go round as well. Hearing comments like that is, glad to hear that we offer this platform for everyone to really achieve their goals, right? So yeah, really appreciate that. And thanks again for jumping on the call, and really looking forward to seeing this listing getting sold for you here in the near future.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, Nick. And all right, everyone, thanks for listening. To learn more and to see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 53531. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.